so Qatar or Qatar, we debated which one. It depends. I hear on cable news all the time, they pronounce it every which way. Qatar or Qatar. I say Qatar, you say Qatar. That country over there, so they're getting the World Cup in 2022. That's what it sounds like, at least at the moment. Now, a lot of people are fighting against that. There's all kinds of reasons because it's going to be hot as hell there. They're also funding a lot of terror all over the Middle East and the world. Some big problems there. But then an interesting piece came out in The Guardian that they basically are using slave labor from North Korea, pretty much indentured servants, to build the actual stadium. So we've got some more info for you. According to the testimonies from workers, laborers said that they receive almost no salaries in person during the 3 years that they typically spend there. So they're sending people from North Korea. They spend 3 years, basically get no pay. The expectation is that they will collect their earnings when they return to North Korea, but workers receive as little as 10% of their salaries when they go home, and some may receive nothing at all. The workers essentially are there to earn foreign currency for North Korea. So this is pretty terrible stuff. And you know, all these things, when we have Olympics in different places and World Cup and all that, we hear all this stuff about all these people literally getting killed. There's been many, many people that have already been killed while building this thing. They have no rights and protections and anything like that. Does this surprise you in any way? Like, I feel like people just don't really care about this stuff because it always happens.
Right, it doesn't surprise me at all. And by the way, for a North Korean to look around and go, this is some slave labor bullshit, it's gotta be pretty friggin' bad, you know? Yeah. It's gotta be pretty bad, but it doesn't surprise me.
I saw you nodding along. This definitely doesn't surprise you.
No, well, Kim Jong-un being a dick doesn't surprise, I don't think, anyone at this point. But you know, this is actually a Qatar issue, like, and an international community issue. Anyone who's a World Cup fan, like, this is an instance where we actually probably have some power in the situation to really shine a spotlight on the authorities in Qatar so hard that they can't hide from it, and they actually have to address it, right? And
so what could we actually do?
Well, there's, you know, they mentioned an organization in that article. I think it's the Anti-Slavery International. They're like a 175-year-old organization that's working on shining that spotlight, and just through social media, through support of those organizations that are pushing forward anti-slavery efforts, we can potentially ensure that they're no longer enslaved in Qatar. We can't really do anything about the North Korean slavery, but at least they're home.
Is the bigger problem here that people just love these events? So no matter what happens, you know, there have been stories even this past summer about that in Brazil, people were getting displaced and they were just removing all these low income houses. They were just literally just making people homeless to build the stadium and to build concession stands. Like, there's something about sports and this national pride thing that it supersedes any kind of human right thing, right?
Right. I think it's obviously it's a terrible thing, and I think any country that treats their women as second-class citizens, it's no surprise that they're going to treat foreigners as second-class citizens, which they do. But I also think it becomes a fine line of, here we are having so much aggression towards the Middle East, some of it warranted, some of it maybe not, but we have a situation where we can involve them into a world organization and a world pastime, and so it's a hard thing to say, do we not go there now at all, or do we take the good with the bad and say, you know what, we want them to participate? Because you can't just keep pushing those kind of countries to the side. They have to participate, and maybe part of the participation also comes with people standing up from the other countries like the United States and like England and saying, you have to take some responsibility for what is going on here.
Yeah, so I mention that all the time. Every time we talk about gay rights in that part of the world, every time we talk about women's rights in that part of the world, all basically human rights, minority rights, all of that, they really have none of that in that part of the world. And yet we still grant them the ability to host these things. Women in Saudi Arabia still can't drive. Now it sounds like maybe they'll be able to drive to vote. Like, it's just such a mess. So what are we supposed to do?
Well, I sort of agree with Felicia. I mean, I think that by potentially hosting the World Cup here, it's putting them on the international stage, right? And it's giving other countries an opportunity to learn more about this country on the other side of the world that they may have no idea about, and to travel there in some cases. And I think that it's only through that sort of interconnectivity that you can even sort of begin to address some of these inequality issues. And by by meeting these people, by learning more of their customs, or just learning more in general. And I'm sort of pro doing more of this sort of development stuff in those countries.
Yeah,
because of that.
I like the idea. I just don't know. I mean, look at Russia. Like, we gave them the Olympics, and then it looks like things got a hell of a lot worse, or at least according to the people in Crimea, I suppose.
Right. Well, I think what should happen is the people that are actually going to go to that event should bring their wives and their rowdy cousins that are chicks and just get their drink on and
And then everything.
then show the women there, look what we got. You know what I mean?